something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we
Do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Oh, I have managed to leave my little thing on. There you go. Let me take that off. Hey, it's amazing just how true Ronald Reagan was back in the day, uttering those words. Government is certainly raising a few eyebrows here in Australia at the moment. Let's put it that way. There are more questions than there are answers, and we shall talk more about that later in tonight's show. First up, though, it's been a little while since I've had the opportunity to chat with anybody from QSI. In fact, a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to catch up with Emily from QSI International firsthand. And through a really bad set of circumstances, I couldn't actually make it on the day. So I'm very, very pleased to welcome both Emily and the lovely Jane from QSI back to the Voice of Freedom. Hello, ladies. Thank you for coming back. And once again, my apologies for missing you when you were in town.
No worries at all. And it's so good to see you. Carl, you look amazing.
Ah, look, that comes from cutting a lot of wood and hopefully being a bit more in the exercise regime that I have been. And I've got to say, Jane, you look like you've lost a bit of weight too. So good on you, girl. You're doing great.
Oh, look, I've been focusing on being super healthy and getting lots of rest and spending plenty of time down the river. Murray River's a great place.
Yeah, Murray River is very cathartic. So
every pound that you guys are losing, I think I'm gaining in your place instead. So
you will trek around the world and eat exotic foods, Emily. I mean, that's just how it works.
Absolutely.
So, look, it's been a while since we've chatted, and as I say, and QSI really garnered the enthusiasm and the interest of many Australians over the last 3-4 years, I suppose, or probably even a little bit longer now. But there have been ups, there have been downs, there have been scam rumours, there have been other kinds of rumours, there have been nefarious rumours, there have been, he's hooked up with her and her Joe's up who, and look, it got all the messy. And for a lot of us on the outside, that seemed to, it could have shied a few people away. So, Emily, can I take us back to, maybe 2 or 3 years ago when QSI, as I believe, is doing a great thing for people if you are prepared to do the course and do the research and understand what's going on. It is a massive benefit, I think, to people psychologically. But there are many who have pushed back and many who have said, it's all a scam, it's all a scam, it's all a scam. And then, of course, there were others that were associated with QSI who seemed to branch out on their own and do a few weird things. And you sort of got caught in a bit of a rumor mill, didn't you?
I certainly did. And I'm not surprised, to be honest. It's like with anything in life. When you are trying to take down the cabal, because you know how corrupt they are, but it's not about knowing, it's about proving. And that's what we specialize in, is the proof. Of course, they're going to try to take you down. Of course, they're going to try to defame you, character assassinate you. And not just me, and not just the platform. I mean, Jane was part of it too. And they were trying to come after all of us who are out there speaking the truth, like your platform, the Voice of Freedom. We're trying to bring freedom, sovereignty, empowerment back to people. And of course, the cabal doesn't want that. So of course, they're going to do everything in their power to try to sabotage the movement instead.
So knowledge is power. That's what the old saying says. QSI run a knowledge-based course that is imperative for people to be part of if they are to understand in detail what is happening to the world at the moment, both economically and spiritually, I believe. Have there been many leaps forward in that in the last 12 months or so where you've been able to solidify a little bit more for your followers?
That's an interesting question. I think at the end of the day, I would say yes. And there's becoming a bigger and bigger divide. And the reason why I say that is because I think it's pretty obvious for most people. When you go after the truth, it's not about what I can prove, but it's about what you will go and verify as a fact after something that I've said and I've shown. And so what I'm noticing is people who actually go and do the research, verify exactly what I say, they're coming full into alignment because I've got all the facts, the proofs, the sources, everything for people to go and check. And it's the ones who just, listen to something and not verify anything and either accept it as truth or just dismiss it. Those are the ones who are falling out of alignment, if that makes sense to you.
Sure. So you have team members like Jane scattered right across the world. What does the team do? How does the team work together to benefit the whole?
Well, I'd love Jane to talk more about that because she's one of our best.
Sure.
Really, the number one thing is to help anyone who's struggling or guide anyone who's struggling for points of reference. No, don't give them the answers, but give them enough that they know where to go and look for the answers that they're seeking. The team run face-to-face events where people of like minds can come together and discuss Stella, the divine, and anything else that they may be worried about, and learn or gain tips from others or points of advice from others as to how to self-heal and get rid of any dark energy and energy attacks. It's a lot about focusing on yourself, because when you do the right thing by yourself, you're going to ultimately do the right thing by everyone else around you, and do it with love.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can piggyback off to what Jane's talking about, it's not just that we're providing a platform for people to share the truth, but I think what's also equally important is part of that platform is actually helping to debunk what a false narrative would be, what a fake fact would be, because there are, like you said before, so many rumor mills.
Yeah.
And when you start, to kind of compound, let's call it different kinds of indoctrination or beliefs out there, they're easily debunkable, right? But it's more about making people aware that, hey, something has been debunked already. These doom and gloom narratives are not even real. They were created by the cabal to infiltrate the truther movement so that it would collapse from within.
Yeah. So QSI predominantly deals in the crypto world. Crypto, if you're following Bitcoin, is on a bit of a resurgence at the moment, but crypto goes up, crypto goes down. Many people are still paralyzed by the word crypto. They don't really understand what it means. They're so used to the fiat system that even getting them to swap to buy gold or silver is difficult. So how can a QSI course or how can QSI help those people like me? And we'll get into my problems with the crypto wallets in the not too distant future. But how can you help people like me who are numpties when it comes to this?
I love that term. And great question, Carl. So I wanted to spell another rumor. Crypto in and of itself as a term is not even, let's call it, correct. That's a term from the olden age. And what we're really talking about in teaching and discussing pretty much all day long is called tokenization, which is a completely different term. And if I just break that down into its most simplest form, tokenization just means you're digitalizing something. What is that thing? It could be a currency, it could be a commodity, it could be a business contract, your home, right? Real estate. It's literally anything and everything in the world. It can be digitized. And once it's digitized, it could be traded or moved around or safeguarded, protected, whatever you need to do. So it's really about protecting data that happens to be on chain instead. So it goes way, way further than crypto, so to speak. And if we talk more about, like how could somebody be, let's say, comfortable with using it if it seems so foreign, so new to them? Well, I would say the two biggest thing to focus on is, one, people are already on it. They don't even know they're on it, but they've already been on it for many years. In some countries, 10 years plus. In other countries, maybe only 1 or 2 years. But I can tell you, Australia has been one of the leaders in actually adopting digital assets without you even knowing it. And how do I have proof? 2 big proofs. One, if you can make a transaction and there's no internet, like say your phone's on airplane mode or something, or you have bad connection, that's actually already on crypto. It's already on the Stellar blockchain. 2, if you can make a transaction and it's within just a handful of seconds, it's already on Stellar. So Australia was actually one of the first ones to adopt it, and you guys didn't even know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, they've been sneaking shit in behind us here in Australia for years. So unfortunately, we now have another government in power that's going to sneak a lot more stuff in, although sneaking is probably not the operative word. How then do we make securing our tokenized investment safe? And if you're going to tell me put it in a wallet, we're going to have a very in-depth conversation.
No, I love this question, and Jane definitely chip in as well. But what's happening is we're transitioning into a future of quantum technology. We're not quite there yet. So it'll take a couple more years. They're still doing a lot of beta testing in the background. But as you've probably been noticing, whether you work at a job where you're at home leisurely, everything's moving to biometrics and what they're calling is like a biometric verification process. So right now, wallets are not there. And it's very clunky, very burdensome. If you lose your keys, you're out of luck. Pardon my French. If someone hacks you, then it's like, what even happened? I don't even know, how they got into my wallet. It's very confusing. So part of all this is actually the dumbing down of the process to make it foolproof. And once it's foolproof, it's much easier to use. And then from there, you throw on quantum security, which is a very, technical term. But once you have that, then it's impregnable. You cannot hack it. That's the whole part of quantum security. So it'll take a couple more years. There's still a lot of beta testing going on in the background. But the good news is if you happen to be somebody who has, let's say, been investing into the Stellar blockchain for the last couple of years, even if you've lost your money to scammers, even if you've lost your wallet because you forgot where your keys are, you will be covered, because this is all part of the beta testing where the people who are in control of the blockchain are going to pay you for helping to test the chain. And that's never been done before in history.
That leads me a question I didn't think I'd be bringing up with you, but one of the blokes that follows you guys, Bradford from the Galactic Larrikins, and his other half, Rob, not other half in a blokey kind of way, I mean. Rob and I were having a conversation the other day about the future of being able to earn a living online. Or better still, earn a very comfortable living by not having to work at all. And that is because the AI algorithms and everything else are seeking out data. Can we, using the QSI tokenized system, tokenize our own data so that whenever it is harvested, we get paid for it? Because that's how AI is working. It needs as many data points as it can get from every one of us. It is harvesting us. Should we not be paid for that? Is there a way that we can tokenize ourselves in this and start getting paid?
That's an interesting question. And the easy answer is yes. In the future, when everything's tokenized, you can do whatever you want to with it. And that is one of the beauties of Stellar. Stellar is actually built for the people. So what that all means is if there's something that you see that is lacking, there's a way that you want to tokenize something. There's a way that you want to, make a profit, create a business, create a foundation, a humanitarian project, whatever it is, there's going to be a way for that in the future. And if you don't see an app, a decentralized app that can do it, then you can program it, because they're going to dumb everything down so that any normal person with no coding experience whatsoever can actually type in through using whatever language you use, right? Like, let's say it's English. Use normal everyday English, you type it in, and because of the algorithms, it can actually spit it into code for you and program an app for you. So that's pretty amazing.
Okay.
But I think
So-
the more important part of your question is about this notion of, can you live off of, say, an online crypto investment and not have to work a job anymore in the future? And I know Jane has way more to say about this, but the short answer again is yes, because what they're designing to do is create a system where you have, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of residual or passive income.
Yes.
Perfect. So what they're designing is actually a way to layer multiple versions of passive residual income. So once you do that, it becomes exponential growth. And I mean, I know for myself and for the QSI platform, we really strive to help people to be able to leave their job faster and be able to create some kind of freedom for themselves. Whether it's because they want to retire or not is totally irrelevant to me. That's free will. They can do whatever they want to. But it's more about creating that both a financial and a time freedom, because once you do that, you can actually pursue your passion. And so we teach a lot about this stacking layer of passive residual income that's created through AI, whether you want to call it AI crypto algorithms or whether you want to call it investing into smart assets, because they're going to be growing this stackly for you.
As you say, there has been a lot of I'm not going to say trial and error, but experimentation in the blockchain to see what can work, what can't work, what works best. It all works in the blockchain. It's just whether or not it works in a functional way. Going forward, well, I think it probably, one of the things I struggle with, and I guess a lot of people my age struggle with, is, and I hesitate to say this too, but the pyramid of crypto. We hear there are so many things that make up crypto: XRP, Bitcoin, XLM, Stellar. If there were to be a pyramid of crypto terminologies, where do Stellar, XRP, XLM, all this, where does that fit in the pyramid?
Oh, I love this question. You asked such good questions, Carl. And I definitely want, Gina to talk on this more as well. But here's the thing that people have not been studying about blockchain, which is actually what we specialize in. And I've done countless calls on this topic, but there's something called Stellar Soroban. And if I have to just make it so simple for anyone to understand, the reason why, let's call it blockchain or crypto, is confusing for everybody outside of QSI is because they're learning about something in a silo. They're learning about, what does Ethereum do? What does Bitcoin do? What does XRP do? And they can't see the bigger picture. So we teach the bigger picture. And what the bigger picture is this thing called Soroban, which is a platform built by Stellar. And it says, if you have something great from Ethereum or something great from Bitcoin or XRP or Solana, Avalanche, whatever it is, we're going to bring that technology, that benefit, onto the Stellar platform. So we're only taking the best of the best. We're consolidating all the best technologies, and we're consolidating into the Stellar platform by bringing that over. So it's kind of like, we call it decentralized open source. So it means instead of one chain saying we're the best, we're better than you, we're saying we don't need competition anymore. We're now going to go to collaboration instead, and we're going to bring in everybody who's the top of everything, whether it's a technology company or a government or a university, a research team, a blockchain, and we're going to collaborate with them to build the best thing possible so we can get rid of the corruption that came in with all the challenge, the striving of companies competing against one another of the past. Jane, you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, and there's a number of calls that Emily's done on this, and Martin will be on QSI Victoria next week, I believe, doing a presentation on Soroban. So that'll be on the Telegram channel. So if anyone wants to come and join that and learn more about Stellar Soroban, I would highly encourage them to do so. And there's many calls and videos that go into what Emily's speaking about and show the evidence to back it up. And yeah, we do know that there's a number of nefarious characters in all of these organisations, and they are being slowly weeded out. And there's more evidence for that in those calls as well. I think that's about it.
Can I piggyback off of what Jane's talking about too? So this is not necessarily, let's call it nefarious per se, but a common, this might upset some people. who are listening, Carl, but if it upsets them, it just tells you that they have not done the research, because as I have. So a little known fact for the QSI is that XRP is actually going to go away in a couple of years. And the reason why XRP is going to become defunct is because back in May of 2023, so almost 2 years ago, they were actually declared by central banks around the world that they're no longer even needed to move assets and money around. So they're going to slowly.
That's what it was going to be, wasn't it? XRP was going to be the backbone of money movement around the world, wasn't it?
Never. And that is the common misunderstanding, because XRP Army have touted themselves as pushing for that, but they never actually had any proof of it. So they literally created a whole movement off of fake news. And so I went there because I used to own a lot of XRP as well. I started researching both XRP and XLM and many other chains. And I was trying to differentiate what is the difference between the two, because they sounded so similar. And so the old narrative was that XRP would be used for institutional and XLM would be used for everything else. And there is some element of truth to that. But the real truth, meaning the updated version of the truth, is XRP was great for moving institutional money around. But like I said a second ago, with Sorobon, Stellar knows how to use that technology, bring it into Stellar, and now we have a stellarized version of XRP. So the native, aka the original version of XRP, is not needed. And when you're not needed, you're going to go out of business. And that's going to happen in the next couple of years. Mark my word. The price should be dropping further by the end of this year, actually, significantly.
During my experience with QSI, there were a number of projects put forward that people could invest in and different things. And we're all waiting for, and I love this word, I think it's with you guys, I first fully learnt this word. We were waiting for liquidity to flow into the system. I love that word, liquidity. I'd love it more if it had actually flowed into the system. Is there any sign? Where are we with that whole story?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. Jane, do you want to jump in first, though?
No, I'll piggyback off you, but all I know is that you can see it. It's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so when we talk about liquidity, the one thing that I think none of us understood at the very, very beginning of this movement is actually, what does liquidity mean? Because in a normal, let's call it stock market system, you go and you pay for something, and if you want to then sell it, let's say an instant turnaround, you buy and you sell the next second, there's enough liquidity in there that you can make that happen. But Stellar's being built from the ground up. So when we started, there was virtually zero liquidity. So we didn't know this. And we thought if we put money in, we can take money out instantly. And that's not how it works. So what happened is, whenever there's a buy order, if there's a sell order, then it goes like, let's say, you buy like 1,000 shares of an asset. If you want to sell it, well, technically you can only sell if somebody else puts in a buy order, right? Because you have to have the opposite.
You got to have a buyer.
Right? Yep. It's simple as that. But if there's no buyer for it, then you can't sell. That means no liquidity. But let's say there's a buyer and maybe they don't see the value in it yet, or maybe it's like one of the people who's trying to manipulate the system. Let's say you bought it at $1 and they want to buy it for you from 1 penny. Well, if you don't understand how this works, or if you are trying to just, offload your assets, and you are willing to sell your $1 asset for 1 penny instead, you're going to effectively, quote unquote, crash the price of that asset because that person was willing to pay. So that's when you have low liquidity. And at the end of the day, it's really about how this thing is being built organically. Stellar is being built organically because we're trying to remove all the manipulation that we've seen in the actual stock market. Stock, bond, real estate, everything in the world is controlled and manipulated by the cabal. So when you have it where only a real buyer and a real seller come to the market, that's when it's a true transaction. So in terms of your original question, how and when does liquidity come in? Well, it's when Stellar becomes more adoptable by the general public. So over the next couple of years, you're going to see increasingly amounts of articles come out, and not just articles, but let's call it acknowledgement by companies, by governments, by banks, and they're all going to slowly start to say, yes, we are using Stellar. And if you do the research now into articles, you will already see the evidence of it, but they have to slow roll people into it because, again, we're still beta testing the system. It is still being worked on. And that's why they're doing this slow, easy roll into adaptation.
Okay, so
Yeah, and
for those,
I'm just going to add something first, Carl. And if you have a look at a lot of the articles that are coming out now, there are subtle hints in the articles. And if you start talking to general people in the street, they are starting to know the word stellar. Some still aren't receptive to it, but yeah, you just say have a stellar day to someone, and they'll look around at you, and you'll see whether it hits, and they know something, or they start to ask you questions. So yeah, it's really interesting just getting out and about as I have been lately to seeing who is at the grassroots level really starting to resonate with Stella and start to look for more information and ask more questions and even go and do beginners training.
It's Carl, if you don't mind, can I just kind of segue this conversation
Yeah.
a little bit? Because I think that this parallel will help people to start to maybe understand what I'm talking about a little bit better with a live example. So let's not talk about crypto and blockchain because that might be too, let's call it far reaching for maybe certain people who are listening to the call. But let's talk about AI for a second, right? So with AI, I think there's been so many rumors, but especially built by the CIA cabal Hollywood narrative that drives people into fear and panic mode, right? Like, oh, like AI is going to overwhelm us and turn us into slaves and that's going to take over the world and ruin everything, right? That's been the driving narrative for decades now.
Yeah.
And that's actually not the truth whatsoever. It might have been if the cabal had won, but there's so much evidence that the cabal is already slowly on its way out the door. And I can talk more about that in the future too. I've got overwhelming evidence on that. But what's more important is this new version of AI that people should be learning about. And this new version of AI is actually being built under the Stellar blockchain. And it's being built again under something called decentralized open source, which means this code is open for everyone to see. It's not hidden. It's not under some kind of cabal lock and key. You can go and you can verify it. And it's being built as a big community collective effort across multiple countries, multiple industries, governments, financial institutions, so banks. You've got universities being part of it. Some of the biggest technology companies in the world, like IBM, Red Hat, and
all the good cabal players is what you're telling me.
Yes,
Yeah.
all the good cabal players. But what happened is, and I've if anyone wants to do like more research into this, I have this very long call on IBM ZOS, and I've proven that the White Hats actually already took over all of the world's companies, and they're slowly adopting White Hat policies in a way where it's so subtle and so slow that the people inside don't even know they're adopting White Hat strategy until it's too late. So if I go back to this whole notion of AI that is already under White Hat control, what they're doing is they're trying to build this collaborative effort to start to ease people in through a step-by-step process. So we're not saying, hey, we're going to go from no AI today, and then tomorrow suddenly everything's full AI and cause chaos and panic. They're going to slow roll it in over many, many years. I'll give you one example. In America, we have now, Doge, the audit that Elon Musk is doing with Trump. But Doge in its original form has actually already been adopted since 2014 when Obama was in office, guys. And I proved this a couple months ago. Obama's Obamacare was actually the first iteration of our Doge audit under a cabal president because he was being forced to implement a White Hat system that would then collect all the data to self-destruct him. Okay, so that's one example. But if we look at like a lot of what Doge is doing recently, they have so many audits right now, and it's it's calculating like hundreds of billions of loss and all this corruption and fraud and waste and theft, really. And they're going to say, okay, eventually when this audit is complete, and it could take a couple more years, I don't know how long, it's now going to say, okay, now who is the one who actually took the money from you? Is it this senator, this president, this governor? Where'd the money go? They bought this island and this yacht. Oh, now we can claw them back and make them pay and have actual justice and fairness, which was never possible before. So then if we go to the other side of it, a lot of these audits are talking about how, like there's an article that came out just 2 days ago saying the Doge audit has now tracked that over 40% of work can be automated, right? Like checking emails, answering phones, Most of the stuff is already on AI for big companies, but the government has been slow to roll into this. So if you can now eliminate 40% of what you're doing every day, you can free up so much time and so much money at the same time too, right? That's just one example of it.
Yeah, amazing. I'm
Yeah.
excited for the future and getting more people involved in the blockchain side of things. I'm particularly interested from a voting perspective. What we're talking about here is, to my mind, only really going to become possible with the acceptance, or at least the use of, our current banking systems, because people have, for whatever reason, some kind of innate trust in our banks. Wouldn't it be the way to go to bring Stellar through the current banking system, as long as the cabal is cleaned out of it?
That's an interesting question, and Jane, feel free to jump in as well. But so what people don't actually realize is all of the world's central banks and most of the banks around the world have already been using Stellar blockchain without knowing it. And I can verify this as well. And they've been doing this since 2023. So literally the whole world is using Stellar blockchain without even knowing it. But if we talk more about, validation, security, especially for voting, blockchain voting is the most secure, because once you validate it on the chain, you can't corrupt it. You can't delete the vote. You can't move the vote. And I don't really know how Australian elections are, but I know in America, like with Seidel, Dominion, all the big names that all of us are familiar with, it was as simple as, and I actually saw, quick side story. The guy that discovered all this information about how they hacked into the voting, the voting system, like the technology, and how they were switching the votes and deleting the votes, I literally know the guy. And I've talked to the guy. I've met him many times. I had a private call with him back before the 2020 election, because I was working in politics back then for the Trump campaign. So I had a private call with him where he walked me through exactly how it works. And he is proving that this election is going to go in such a way that he has all the data from, I think it's 2008, how the elections have been stolen over time. Yep. So I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense to me. And then look what happened, right? It got stolen by Biden. And so we already knew, we already predicted, because we already saw the evidence coming in. So what blockchain does is it says you can no longer go into, hack into the system and then change or delete the votes. And then because of all the security protocols, I can actually validate and say, hey, there's already a Jane Bowman. There can't be 10 other Jane Bowmans with her address and her, her profile. She can only vote one time. So one other thing that people may or may not know is in America, we've actually already been using blockchain voting to validate everything. And that information, that information will actually be coming out in the future. I don't know what year yet, but they're going to declassify that in a couple of years' time.
Well, okay. That would be very beneficial. Jane, sitting quiet as a mouse as you are.
I'm right. But it's like even with our election the other day, I went to work, and I'm actually working as a subcontractor for Australia Post at the moment every morning, and went to work Monday morning, and a couple of the girls came into work, and one was really irate. She said, if polling booths close at 6 o'clock, how can the mainstream media or the media be announcing an Albanese Labor win at 7 p.m? And I have actually worked polling day for the AEC as a temporary election official and whatnot, election staff. We close our booths down at 6 o'clock. The doors get locked. But then once that happens, we then have to go and count all our ballot papers that we haven't issued. We have to account for them all. We have to count them. And that takes anywhere between 15 minutes to 30 minutes. And then you go, and at the end of the day, you don't just go and open the ballot boxes, you go and get something to eat, drink, bathroom break, you name it. So it's, at least 6:45, 7 o'clock before the ballot paper boxes are unsealed to be able to be counted. And the pre-poll votes are technically not supposed to be unsealed or counted until the Monday morning after the election. So, something's fishy.
Well, if I add on to that, there are so many polling stations here in America where if you go to vote, they will actually turn you away because they'll say, oh, our voting machines haven't even arrived, right?
Oh, wow.
Fishy. But you know what? It's because when you study the bigger picture always puts everything into perspective. So if I walk you guys through the bigger picture, we know because of Stellar and studying the technology and the implementation, like the rollout of this technology, by the end of 2028 is a deadline that they're shooting for the whole world to actually move into AI government. So it doesn't mean the entire government is in there, but it means a large percentage of it is in there. So it becomes a much more efficient, more transparent, open, accessible, and totally cuts out corruption, fraud, waste by the end of 2028. So we're in 25, right? So 25, 26, 27, 28, that's 4 years, or like about 3.5 years. We have 3.5 years to get this right. So that means they have to create this narrative. The white hats have to create a narrative to slow walk people into understanding if you want to continue with your existing system of shitty elections, with shitty stolen elections and shitty voting system, you can, but you're going to get shitty results. But if you want justice and fairness and you want to get rid of corruption, then we get to do something different. And they're going to show more and more narratives in the future, right? Because we got to slow walk people into the understanding. But in the future, they're going to share with people that these patents have been existing for many, many years already. It's already been trialed in many countries, many states around the world successfully. And when that happens, people will naturally want to adopt something that's more secure and way easier to do. Because as one example, let's say, Carl, in the future, when our phones are finally secure with quantum technology, would you rather vote off of your phone and just log in, verify your ID with your own biometric and be done after like 2 seconds, or go and wait in line for like 5 hours and then maybe get turned away at the voting booth if their machines are not there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, we're lucky here. The only voting machine that we have is a piece of pencil and a piece of paper. But I'm sure they do have some form of counting machines out the back. And my understanding is here in Australia, at least, these ballots are meant to be hand counted before they're then machine counted. So, I don't know. Jane seems to have dropped out. I've lost her picture, so I've just dropped her out for a minute. But Jane, if you want to pop out and pop back in again, we might see if we can restore your picture. One of the things that you've mentioned a couple of times in this chat so far, Emily, is slow walking people into these changes. There are so many of us that are sick to death of walking slowly down this street. Why is it important that it is a slow, drip-fed change that we go through rather than ripping the Band-Aid off fast and getting on with it?
You know, that's a fair question. I will say it was definitely part of that old narrative where I was like, now, because I'm ready. Let's go. Like, people need to wake up. But what I found is that when you do that, people are too scared and they actually go into fear and panic mode. And that's, you know, as a white hat, that's the last thing that you want to have happen. Because when people—
But wouldn't we have so much positive information coming through in this? No,
because Carl, if you think about it, let's say even from my perspective right now, I've been sharing the truth about crypto and AI and how it's actually good for you. It actually promotes sovereignty and promotes freedom. And look how many people are listening to it. Not very many, because of the fear narrative. So what you would end up seeing is a battle of the different narratives, like what we're seeing now, right? Like they're trying to control the narrative. They're trying to destroy the platform. So the people aren't ready for it. Because again, like if you have not yet proven to people that AI is actually good for you and helps to remove the cabal control and help to lift and provide you freedom and empowerment, then they're never going to believe you. So how long does it take for someone to actually understand that it's good for you? Well, that's the question we don't know. For some people, it could take a couple months. For some people, it could take a couple of years. But so in that meantime, they're doing a lot of testing and maneuvering to constantly check, you know, if we drop these 5 articles today, we're going to monitor how the results are. If people are more receptive to it, we'll put more information out. If they're not, we have to pull back a little bit and say, okay, how do we need to pivot and make sure people understand it before we move on even further? That way, nobody gets left behind in their understanding. So it's actually a much more, okay, let me put it into a different perspective. If you have a technology company and you have not done any beta testing for it, and you have not, basically looked at how feasible is it for people to adopt, and then suddenly you become a monopoly in the whole entire world, and you say everybody's forced to use my technology, and then they all use it and then it breaks, then what do you do?
Yeah, you're in deep shit then. Deep shit. Yes, I understand. So, okay. I just wish we could walk a bit faster. And I guess
Well, Carl,
that-
there's another thingy that we are doing, and I know everyone's talking about, or there's been a bit of talk over the digital IDs, but guys, you've been using it for years under MyGov ID.
Yeah.
It's been there for a long, long time. You've been using it. It's just changed its name to tell you that it is a digital ID. And, you know, people have got up in arms, but you've all been using it.
yeah,
And then when you look
ID
at that,
they use.
yeah, and you actually go further into what we're doing with our MyGov, and you look at how businesses now, for those that are on a wage, are paying, you pay their wages are paid, they've got their pay as you go withholding tax, and then those that go in and do process the payroll are now using a system called single touch payroll, which automatically updates to the ATO when you hit a button in your accounting software. Hit a button, it updates to the ATO, which then they know how much super is owed to you, because we've seen issues with superannuation not being paid by employers. So that goes to them. Then I actually had to go and do a Centrelink report the other day for my son because he needed to do that. He's now fully employed, but he's through single touch payroll, his wages and everything, when he went to do his Centrelink report, were all automatically uploaded. This is all AI working in the background to make all this happen in a positive way for us. So it's all there, correct, because it's all been uploaded via single touch payroll, and the ATO has spoken with Centrelink. We know they all talk together, and there it is. And you just hit the button, report's done. It's pretty simple.
You
Do
know,
you think if we can get the AI that's uploading all this information into the tax department before it does any of that, could it possibly query the tax department as to its authority to take any money off us at all before it starts doing that? I'd be interested in that.
yeah, I mean, everything on algorithms is programmable. So it's a question of who's programming it. And in the future, I mean, now you're already having white hats program a lot of things. But again, they're still testing a lot at the same time, too. But, you know, one of the good and the bad simultaneously things about being in Australia is you guys are so far ahead of the rest of the world. So like Jane mentioned MyGov a second ago, I talked about how the central banks have already been using Stellar blockchain for many years now. So when you say like, I wish it were now, in Australia, it's already now. The only thing that you're not seeing is liquidity coming into your wallet. But otherwise, your country is almost, you know, fully on AI. You don't even know about it. But what's happening is the rest of the world has to now catch up. And most of the world is on a much slower pace. And that's why it takes this many years. So like there's an article that came out, I think it's today or yesterday, about Visa. So Visa just invested into a company called Bunk. It's BVNK. And what they do is literally what Jean was talking about on a bigger scale. They teach, not teach, they've created a platform where you can create a way to automate payments using stablecoins, using blockchain technology, and have it done at a scalable level for businesses, no matter how big or small they are. And Visa already had a contract for this earlier this year, I think in April, for enterprise and institutional investors as well, and organizations. So you're looking at like the slow roll of how it's like, it might have been tested for, let's say, governments before or a company before, but now has a stretching to go into every single industry, every single company, right? So that's what takes time, is the implementation of it. But it's happening. Every day we're seeing new articles about the proof that this is really happening at a big scale.
Can we see a way forward in the future, Jane? You know, Australians love a giveaway. Australians love a freebie, an incentive. Can we see in the future incentivization to pay using Stellar or using the blockchain, and you might get a percentage off whatever bill you're paying or whatever like that to try and get people across? I'm sure that will excite enough people who may not be at the point now where they want to go and investigate how it works. But if it meant saving 10% off their electricity bill, they will go and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. There'll be, I dare say they will be. It's not something that we've thought about right at the moment as to whether there'll be, you know, actual financial rewards over incentives. The financial incentive to look at Stellar and invest in Stellar is that you become your own bank with Stellar. You don't have to worry about having a bank account at the bank. you become your own bank. And your transaction fees on Stellar are very, very minimal. Way, way less than what you'd be paying at the bank.
So I'm a bit confused. If I'm my own bank, do I go to myself to get a new car loan, or how does that work?
I believe there's going to be something in regards to finance. There's been some things that we have seen as to how it's going to work. I'm not 100% sure. Emily might have a little bit more, but I think for those of us who are actually early investors with our residual incomes, and for those that would like to come in and to go through the beginners training and join in on some of the ICOs, a lot of them still will be offering residual income. So, even if you're not a QP, there's still going to be options or availability for residual income and returns on your investment there.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
that's absolutely right. There in the future, well, again, everything's about implementation in the long game, right? So it's like in the future, I won't say every single person in the world is their own bank, but what will happen is over time, it'll become a bigger percentage of it until one day you can be your own bank. So it's not like tomorrow overnight you do it, but you start kind of where Jane was talking about. There are select groups, select people who are positioned in order to be that way, and they'll be trained in order to be that way. And they'll provide these funds. And as other people, other investors, other random people around the world who are starting to learn about Stellar get involved, then they will start to learn and position themselves eventually for that same as well. So it's all about decentralization, right? But if we go back to your original question about how do you actually incentivize people to use Stellar, here are a couple great examples. Banks have been incentivized to use Stellar because Stellar, you can send the transaction in anywhere from split seconds up to a handful of seconds. I would say the average is between 4 to 20 seconds right now at a commercial scale, right?
Wow.
So if you can do it cheaper and you can do it faster, on the Stellar blockchain, it takes a fraction of a penny to actually send an asset. So let's say you want to wire transfer maybe from, your wallet to, let's say, or not even your wallet, your bank account to another person's bank account. Normally, I don't know what Australia uses, but in America, we have the SWIFT system. So if we had to do something on SWIFT, it could take 5 to 7 business days for it to send. And then it could cost like $15, $35 to send like a $5 thing or a $5,000 thing. But on Stellar, if you get done send it in a couple of seconds, 24/7, meaning including all the weekends or holidays, you don't have to worry about the bank, and it's a fraction of a penny, why wouldn't you? So that's why, right? Banks have already been doing it long before we knew about it. And now they're slow rolling it into companies. So companies are now testing it, and they have to continue to roll it out so that they're more comfortable with it. So we're already using it without knowing it. And that's the biggest point of it, is because if you can use something and not even know that you're using it, by the time they make the announcement that Stellar is here, you're not going to freak out and go, no, I have to learn like all this new stuff. It's too complicated, because you're already using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Carl, it's like as Emily was saying, with our bank transfers now, they've got 5 to 7 days. A lot of our bank transfers here now in Australia are instant. If I was to pay you to your bank account, it should be pretty well instant. Worst case scenario, it's going to take overnight.
Yeah, that's proof that it's Stellar.
Yeah, the OSCO system, it's called, I think, in the banking system here. But if you transfer to any account, it should almost be there, like you say, Emily, within 4 to 20 seconds. And so we, as the end user, would notice no difference whatsoever.
Yeah,
other than the saved cost.
Yes, you notice saved cost and convenience on your behalf. And whenever you start to notice that, like anybody who's listening to the call right now, go into your store, go into your restaurant, go into your grocery store, whatever it is that you're using your payments for, you hit the tap button. If it's processing within a couple of seconds, that's already Stellar right there. But if I go back and kind of like look at the bigger picture of, let's say, retail users now, how do we incentivize people? What they've actually been building for the last year plus, maybe 2 years now, is this reward program. So think about currently, and also back in the day, you'd have, let's say, your airline reward program with your miles. Then you have bank version. Then you have your gas, petrol in Australia, right? And then you have your restaurant reward system. You have all these different kinds of reward systems, and none of those systems talk to one another. So you've got 5,000 points here and 5 points here and 50 points there. And it's like, okay, well, these points are sitting there and it's not really tappable. So what we've been noticing is they're slowly building bridges so that your restaurant point can talk to your airline miles, can talk to your hotel reservations, and they can slowly consolidate that. And that is also on Stellar. So they're basically trying to find a way where anything of any kind of stored value of any amount will no longer be wasted. It'll be brought back to you for you to be able to empower and use it for your own good.
Wow. That leads me into a whole other realm of questioning, but we don't have enough time for tonight, because I can think of a lot of stuff if we were to go back and I'm getting off track. No, don't. Yeah, that's a chat for another day.
Encourage people to do the research on that.
Yeah, I'm very interested in learning more about that. So, feed me the details. Knowledge is power, and I'm sure after this chat, there'll be a number of people who'll be very interested in learning more, and hopefully holding my hand as we go through basic beginner training.
Yes, Carl, you still need to get through beginners training. It will do you the world. You'll love it. Hey, the Postal Services manager, Carl, the Postal Services manager that I work with currently, she's really keen. And the first night she watched the first video and the half of the second one in proofs. So, and she's that hungry for information. She's about to head to the US and hopefully catch up with the guys in QSI Nevada. So that's really exciting.
So
that is very exciting.
One thing I want to clarify about this whole beginner's training, because I know it can seem very daunting, because the word training usually offsets people because they're like, oh, I don't want to go back to school. So what we do at QSI is our channel, our platform is quite advanced now, because we've been studying this every single day for the last couple of years. So we don't want people to feel overwhelmed when they arrive. So we put them through beginner's training first. That way they can slow walk themselves at their own pace, whether it takes a week or 10 years to finish, it doesn't matter. And we break it into 3 different segments. So the first segment is, what is Stellar? Why is it, the biggest thing since sliced bread? Why are all the countries and the governments and the banks and the, everything adopting it? So you learn exactly what this information is that you're looking for is actually built into the first training module of it. That way you know everything about Stellar basics before you ever invest into it. Because the last thing that you want to have happen is you invest in something, you don't know what's going on, and then you start to freak out and wonder what's actually happening with your money, right? We want people to feel comfortable if they choose to invest, but some people never invest, and that's completely okay. Because again, knowledge is power, so getting the information out is actually the most important part of it.
How can people find out more? Where do they come to do the beginner training?
We've got a QSI app on both Android and Apple. Obviously, Apple is better than Android, so I'll just obviously. But we encourage people to go to the training app first, because again, if you come straight into the platform, you will get overwhelmed. It's very, very fast paced in there. So come find us on the training app. Self-paced course, and you'll take 3 quizzes. And once you finish the 3rd quiz, so it's one quiz per module. 3 modules total. And then once you finish it, then there's a link for the actual chat platform that we're on, so you can come and get more advanced information.
And there is a phenomenal amount of information in those chat channels.
Yes. And one thing that I do want to make clear to everybody listening is all of our information is 100% free. We never charge for anything. And we actually encourage people to continue free education, because I hate when people put up paywalls and become patriots, because then you wonder, okay, well, why are you telling me this? Like, what is your incentive for telling me? Okay, well, they're trying to make a living off of it. So we do the opposite. Everything that we do is public information, and it's free for the whole world, because we believe that much in Stellar. We believe that people should be learning about it, because it is your future. So whether you learn about it or you don't learn about it, it's already happening. So you might as well learn on your own time when you're ready instead.
Absolutely. So the app is available through the App Store and Google Play. For those folks with one of those Android phones. And go through, do the training, and once you've completed those 3 modules and get the tick of approval, get into the chats, because you will learn a phenomenal amount of information there. Ladies, thank you for joining me today. Emily, it's been a long time since we've actually chatted like this, and I really find these chats extremely beneficial, and I know from previous conversations with viewers that they find it the same. So I can't thank you enough for coming back on. We'd love to do it more regularly with you. Not that we don't love Jane, but Jane's welcome anytime. She knows that. All she's got to do is pick up the phone.
Well, maybe, Carl, I will have another chat with you once you go to face-to-face on the Gold Coast with Matt and Mrs.
Oh God, I'm going to be all trouble. For those who don't know, Matt's going to save my lobster wallet, and Missy is Jane's daughter, and she's just a pile of trouble. So I'm going to get all sorts of stripe on the Gold Coast with her.
In other words, Mrs. is just going to keep on you, Carl, and make sure you get through beginners training, and she won't take no for an answer.
Well, now that I've got, what is she, nearly 17 now, I suppose?
She's 17.
Righto. So I'll have a 17-year-old teacher to hold my hand going through it. That'll be fine.
Yes, that's about it.
Thank you, ladies. Appreciate your time, and I look forward to catching up again real soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Carl.
Hi, are you passionate about supporting independent media and social events? Voice of Freedom is dedicated to bringing you the latest happenings and things that matter. But we can't do it without your help. By donating, sponsoring, or becoming a member, you're not just supporting our mission. You're joining a community that values transparency and engagement. Your contributions allow us to continue producing high-quality content that informs and inspires. Visit VOFHQ.com to make a donation or explore sponsorship or membership opportunities. You can even donate using crypto. Together, we can amplify voices that deserve to be heard as we continue to create a vibrant platform for social change. Go to VOFHQ.com, help us to help you by joining us and making a difference today.
Well, to stage. There we are. I'm back. I'm trying to put myself up. Bloody screens tonight, popping around all over the place. What an interesting chat. Thank you to Emily and Jane. Some of you may figure out I've changed shirts and possibly had a shower in that small interim break. Of course, because of the time difference, we recorded that a little earlier this afternoon with Emily. And Jane is in the chat right now. If you have any questions about QSI, and I'm sure she'll put the links up in the chat for you to go and have a look, although the app is the place to go and do things these days. So go to the App Store or go to the Google Play Store and download the QSI app if you'd like to get a bit more involvement in that kind of thing. And there's certainly, well, it creates a lot of interest in the chat. Just looking at a lot of your comments there. There is, Ange particularly, no trust at all in what's being said here. And there are a lot of people who are involved in the crypto who feel similar for whatever reason. Now, there's somebody in the chat who's claiming to have lost thousands of dollars in QSI offerings. Now, I continue to make the same offer I've made from pretty much day one when I started speaking with people from QSI. If you can come to me and you can show me how you followed their plan and you lost money, or as you say, it was stolen from you, come and talk to me. Prove to me that that's what happened. But if you took advice, and if you, after taking the QSI advice, deviated from that advice in any way, shape, or form, you weren't robbed. What you did was change the plan without advice from QSI, who offered up the plan. Now, my investigations so far have led me to believe, and I've had people claiming to have lost $600,000 or more, Brownie, come to me and scream about QSI, but can't actually show me how QSI robbed them. Why? Because they took the QSI tips, if you like, and then decided to go out and trade them in a different area, in a different part of the system. Tried to short the system, if you like, and it didn't work, and they lost money. That has been the substance of every complaint I've had about QSI that's come to me and that I've investigated. I have not had one complainant come to me and show me that they followed the steps that QSI outline in their training and in their online chats, and prove to me that they've been robbed if they've followed those steps. If they've deviated from those steps in any way, shape, or form, you haven't been robbed. You've changed the plan. You changed the plan, not anybody else. If you decided to take your money and put it into something somewhere else, then I can't help you. That doesn't prove a fraud. That doesn't prove a scam, right? That just proves you were trying to game the system a bit. And I don't blame you for trying to do it if you think you can. I'm not smart enough to do that kind of thing. I would need to be guided by Iz and Jane and everybody else to try and play that game. And I simply just don't think they are playing that game, to be honest. But we all get presented with decisions and choices in our life, right? And the choice is you can either investigate this and do your own research, as I see many people in the chat have offered up tonight, or you can sit on your ass with your thumb up your hole and complain and bitch and moan from the sidelines and throw defamatory comments. You may not believe they're defamatory, but unless you've actually done the research, and some of the comments that I've seen thrown up in here tonight are certainly defamatory. If you haven't done the research, then I'm afraid you can't be taken terribly seriously. I'm lucky to be spoken to by these people because I haven't done the research. It's that simple. Why haven't I done the research? Well, I'm one of the generation who looks at crypto and looks at AI and looks at all this stuff that's coming through. And while I'm very keen to see the abundance flow to everybody, I'm still not sure how it actually works. And the Lobster wallet, which we've spoken about here many times, on my phone, I still can't get into. And I've changed nothing. This is why I have a problem with wallets and that sort of stuff. In fact, I had a very interesting conversation the other day with Michael from Ainsley Bullion, Michael Engerman. Now, Ainsley have a crypto wallet they were offering, but they're not offering it to new people anymore. This is a cold wallet system, and if you do have one, it's still working and very viable inside their system. You've got no need to worry about it. It just became a bit of a drag on their system and a very high intense workload, I think, more than anything else. And the Ainsley Saver program came into being, which was and has been very well accepted and has had a pretty good uptake. A lot of people have started an Ainsley Saver account, particularly a lot of you who watch this show. Thank you very much. And are continuing to build their wealth by fractional investment. Now, okay, I'm a believer in gold and silver, as many of you are, but that doesn't mean I don't believe in crypto. Why I'm not into it is because I just don't understand it yet. And for many of the reasons that some of you have posted in the chat here tonight. Many of us want something tangible, something in our hands. All this talk of decentralization, tokenization, and digital everything only confirms to me that even though we are pushing back against a CBDC or anything like that, it has to come with this kind of transaction change, our financial system change. It has to go digital. And therefore, if you want to access it, then I guess that means we're going to have to be digital at some point. And as the ladies pointed out in the show, we are already very much involved, very much digitized. Our data, our information, and as was pointed out by Jane, I think the MyGov account that, I don't know how many, is every Australian meant to have one? I don't know. The MyGov account is a classic example of how the AI works. I think they use voice identification, amongst other things. And yeah, it's already coming. So, yep, we never asked for it. I see Paul saying in the chat, we certainly never asked for it. There's a lot of things we don't ask for and we managed to get, like Anthony Albanese as a prime minister, just saying. But at any rate, decisions are yours to make. I simply present people to talk to who have a very interesting and what I would consider a worthy conversation to have. It's up to you what you do with that information. And if you choose to go and get the QSI app and go and explore a few things, maybe we'll be in the first class. I don't feel I can tear this down. I don't feel a need to tear this down, but I am not in a position to tear QSI apart because I simply do not understand the inner workings of it. And I have to do that training before I can begin to understand the inner workings of it. And I'm sure everything will become a lot clearer. So Izzy, Mark, Matt, rather, guess we better sort ourselves out and set up a day where I need to come for lessons once a week. But I'm very keen to try and learn more about it so that I can explain it in a way that helps you, if you're struggling to understand it like I am, helps you understand it a little bit better. And maybe together we can both figure out whether or not it's something for us. So that's my point in doing all this. And thank you. Loving the decentralized life, training is important. Yes, because if we don't train, all we do is fail a lot when we get confronted with the things we should have been training for. So I would be very happy to give the training a go. I've just got to get a little bit of time aside to do it, and it's got to be a priority. I think it's got to be a priority for us all to learn, to gain that knowledge, and to be able to make informed decisions. Now, if your informed decision at the end of the training says, "I don't wish to be involved," well, okay, that's your decision. At the end of the training, you might decide, well, maybe there is something in this. Let's look deeper. I'll be very interested to see which way that goes. So please, if you're going to start that journey, reach out to me. We can do that together. I'd be very keen to get your assessments of it as we go through it together. I'd be very keen. Did you understand why Labor won over the last weekend in the election? This is a very interesting tweet that was put out today by the Archangel Michael. Labor won because the numbers back it up. 31% work for the government in funded roles. 21% of people are classified as disabled, and 5.9% are underemployed. That's a huge chunk relying on public money. When survival depends on the system, voters back the hands that feed them, not the one talking about long-term reform. They're only thinking about short-term incentives. That's one part of the problem anyway. I believe shit has hit the fan a lot harder and less subtly for people who realise they are actually indirectly incentivised to vote for reform. Part of the problem, but a huge problem nonetheless. Australians have been trained for socialism for years. I think that is a very, very, very true statement, and something that we can all, I think, have a resonance bell dinging away in the background for us. Are we still questioning the AEC? I've had some interesting conversations in the last 24 hours about ways and means around the AEC, or how to best investigate it for fraud. There doesn't seem to be too many great ways of doing that. However, more and more evidence does seem to be coming out. Now, this is some scary stuff coming out of Adelaide. This was put up by somebody named David Haynes, got sent to him. The swings don't add up. I have now got evidence from a university colleague in Adelaide who was the 2IC at accounting booth there in Adelaide. It is total corruption. She's been 3 times in charge of booth counts at federal elections. They also closed down telecommunications before their first call-in count. And she has the AEC text saying, "Don't call us, we'll call you," which they never did. As she said, how could they have announced the winner at 9:30 p.m. when no votes from their voting booth had even been received? In her mid-50s and worked in many government departments, an A-grade student, she's contacting 3AW in Melbourne and emailing Gerard Rennick today. Don't know if that was yesterday or today, but hopefully Rennick's got something. Michelle told me that if there was a number 1 for independent and they ignored it, it went on to who the major 2 parties was first in the box, whether 7th or 8th place in a Labor or LNP pile, and totally dismissed the number 1 preferences on the paper. That's one story. I have heard 6 or 7 of those in the last 2 days. First-hand stories from temporary AEC officials working at polling places in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, and I think one of them was in Western Australia. If this sort of illegality has been seen by temporary AEC election monitors or employees, do they not have a fiduciary duty to we the people as a public servant at the time to do what's right? If you happen to know, and Aaron, I haven't heard from you. I'm very keen to hear what your thoughts were, although I think you probably figured out how disgusting it was. Aaron has been a friend of mine for a few years now, and he's been involved in scrutineering and election counts, well, at least three or four that I can remember. And I do remember him being pretty disgusted with how things have played out in the past. Whether or not he stood up this time, I'm not sure. But if I'm getting 6 or 7 reports, then everybody else is getting reports as well. And they're probably not from the same people. We need to bring these whistleblowers together. We need to start blowing the whistle very, very, very loudly. To what effect? A recount? Would you trust the AEC to recount the votes? Who would you trust to oversee the AEC as they recounted the votes? Gerard Rennick? Don't know. He might be the bloke you put up for Doge. I hear he's looking for a job. So too Malcolm Roberts. Here is an interesting offer that I'll put out to both those gentlemen on this program. Now that they are no longer running in Parliament or sitting in that place, I have no doubt Malcolm will be trying very hard to get himself re-elected again in 3 or 4 years, and probably Gerard Rennick too. Could I make this offer to them? Come and look at our side of the fence. Come and talk seriously with the serious people on our side of the fence. Come and have some private, serious conversations about constitutionality, about our history, about theft. And you've probably heard many of the arguments or many of the facts that will be put forward to you, should we ever be able to get in the same room together. You may have heard them all before, but you've had to brush them because of your position inside that parliament. I would say that you two gentlemen, Malcolm Roberts and Gerard Rennick, have an opportunity. It's going to be a small window of opportunity, I would say less than 2 years. But you have an opportunity to come and be part of our side of the community. Learn some of what we are speaking about. Whether you believe it or not at the end of it, well, I guess time will tell, and whether or not you can gain the support of the people who don't believe as many others do in this country. We would like to educate you. We would like to have the conversation. Maybe you are both very well educated and certainly aware of the fraud. If you are aware of the fraud, well, that's another conversation. But maybe it's one that we can and should have. And it doesn't have to be public initially, but we do need to find a way forward. And if we are going to have conversations in the freedom movement about moving forward, like we spoke last night, we need to have people like that at the table. We need to have 2 blokes like that asking questions. Although if they're going to base their questions on the fake constitution and its lawfulness, then I guess, well, it'll make for an interesting comedic break. But that's why coming to us and having conversations with those, I'm going to call them intellectuals, who are working on solutions for us all in this nation, I think it would be a very beneficial moment for them. I think they could benefit greatly from it. And hey, boys, you're unemployed. The media aren't following you around. You don't have to deny ever meeting us in public or having conversations. we can simply bump into each other one day. Wouldn't that be nice? I think it'd be quite nice. And before we leave tonight, I have one last thing I would like to show you. An Indian NDIS employee has leaked about 43,000 participant names for friends to chase as clients. Now, I happen to know the NDIS has an awful lot of Indians working inside it, in the administration of the NDIS. In fact, a lot of them are running the system quite high up. Many of them, unfortunately, are employed more because of their disability than their ability. And the wastage that is currently being pushed through the NDIS system is mind-blowing, to the tune of billions of dollars a day. The people who are put in charge of handing out this money are encouraged to do so by their superiors. Not to knock anybody back, keep throwing the money at them as far and as hard as possible. Now, I'm not saying there aren't people worthy of having money thrown at them every day. Certainly, I'd love to be one of them. But I wouldn't like to limp and, speak with a lisp for the rest of my life because of it. However, there are many people who put on the limp and who do put on the lisp and bleed the NDIS dry. Bleed us dry. And as those figures that we popped up there before, let me just bring those back up again. 21% are classified as disabled. How would you think they would like a restructure of the NDIS, and how do you think they would vote? Hopefully you would think sensibly, but not necessarily the case. The fraud, the disgusting fraud that's being perpetrated inside our government institutions, and I believe leading the way is the NDIS, is being done deliberately and being done and overseen by Bill Shorten, used to be the head of all of this. And when he announced a crackdown on the fraud that was going on inside the NDIS and they discovered the scale of it, what did Bill Shorten do? He resigned from Parliament and went and hid at ANU. I think he's the Vice Chancellor at ANU now. Who the hell would give that muppet a Vice Chancellorship in the university? But you've got to get the people who are good at brainwashing the brains in the universities into the universities, don't you? So where do they send one of the best brainwashing morons in the Liberal and the Labor Party? They send him to the university. Who knows? He might even learn something. I doubt it. All right, folks, I've prattled on long enough tonight. It has been a little longer than normal. Thank you for sticking with me. I appreciate you coming and joining me every night when we have this little time together, or if it's not live, then I appreciate you listening to the show or watching it back later. If you have a comment, please drop it in the comments after the show. I will be looking at them. I try and look at the show comments every morning very early. I do tend to pass a comment or two back. So thank you for your participation tonight. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to go and have a look at a few of the other offerings that we have, vofhq.com is our website. If you've got some whistleblower stuff, you can send it to us anonymously at contrib.vofhq.com. We are getting some very interesting stuff coming in there at the moment, and coming up in the next few weeks, we will bring some of that to you. I think you might find it pretty interesting. So enjoy yourselves for the rest of tonight. I hope whatever you're up to, it involves going off and maybe making a purchase from ainsleyBullion.com.au. Don't forget to leave my name or Voice of Freedom in the notes section there, or when you go into the showrooms and meet the guys in person, then mention my name. You'll get a little discount when you buy. And it's not a huge discount. Don't get overexcited. But it is a discount, and I don't think anybody else in Australia is going to give you one of those discounts when you go to buy gold and silver at the moment. So take that from us at Voice of Freedom. We're glad we can do it. And Ainsley Bullion, who are marvellous folks, are been in the business now for over 50 years and have some truly wonderful offerings if you are of a mind to get yourself into gold and silver. And hopefully tomorrow at some stage we might catch up with Michael Engerman. That'll mean I'll have him on tomorrow night. If it's not tomorrow night, we'll probably do a little live on Saturday morning to bring you up to speed with what's going on in the markets. Just having a bit of a look at the moment. Gold is still over $5,200 an ounce, 5,205 in fact. And silver spot at Ainsley.com at the moment is $50.42. Let me just refresh that. That might have been sitting there a little while. $50.47. So there you go. It's gone up in the time it took to refresh the screen. Have a great day, folks. Thank you very much once again for joining us. And if you do want a hoodie, you can go to vofhq.com or merch.vofhq.com. And thank you for Tony. I think Tony went over there yesterday, bought a couple of hoodies, and those orders will be getting placed just as soon as we meet the minimum threshold. I'm not exactly sure what that is. I'll have to ask Vince. But as soon as we've reached that, those orders will go in, and you will get your hoodies and or your Australia Land of the Fee T-shirts very, very shortly thereafter. Be safe on the roads, folks. There are a ton of dickheads out there, and some of them are, well, I'll be honest, quite a lot of them are driving Uber.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!